Is that a giant peanut behind you, JJ?
It is. It's a Jimmy Carter peanut. In fact, I don't know if you can tell, but it has a terrifying toothy grin on it.
I don't see it. Oh wait, is it like hidden in there? Like it's not like a different color than the peanut skin, is it?
It.
Oh my god!
Sheesh! It's like
it was
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, it was it was like a fundraising promotional thing for the Carter campaign. Yeah.
That you ran, of course, back in the day.
Yeah, I'm that old. Yeah, I was around during the.
I was going to say, Pisco, you can't get JJ started on his background because like each piece has like a 4-day backstory that he could tell. I mean, there's like an entire lore to his apartment.
Oh, yeah.
That's why there's so many videos. I typed in JJ
Have you
McCullough.
been there?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
me and JJ go way
in Canada.
In Canada, yeah, I've been to Canada. It's
Oh, wow.
I don't want to sound un-American or anything, but no.
Well, soon it will be a part of America, and so you won't.
The 51st state. That's right.
No. But I was gonna say, oh crap, what was I gonna say? No, I don't remember. Doesn't matter anymore. Oh no, I googled JJ McCullough, and like the first autofill is apartment. Like that's like the biggest lore thing about him. Like so. Anyway,
You ever get confused with JJ Redick? There's a lot of JJs that are like sports. JJ
Redick. Oh no! Sometimes people make jokes about JJ Abrams, and I'm really dating myself if at the schoolyard people used to call me OJ because that was, of course, the popular
Rest
initial named man of the time. Yeah.
Welcome to Live and Learn, the only American podcast that has diversity Canadian hires. I'm 25% of it, the soy pill. With me as always is Hutch, Pisco, IRI, and special guest. Everyone give a warm welcome to Canadian ambassador of the 51st state, JJ McCullough.
Thanks for having me.
JJ, welcome.
Nice to be here.
JJ, how are you doing? Tell us about yourself. Who are you? Why should we listen to anything you have to say?
Oh well, I'm a beloved Canadian YouTuber influencer. I was actually recently named as one of the top 15 news influencers in Canada, behind Joe Rogan and all the other Americans. So I think I was like one of only like 3 Canadian names on that list. So that tells you something.
That's huge. That's a huge get.
Well,
how long have you been doing content? What do you do? Introduce yourself to the stream here.
Yeah, so I mean, I make YouTube videos about cultural stuff. I used to be a political commentator. That's actually my background. I worked for the Washington Post for many years as a weekly columnist, and I used to be like a sort of talking head pundit type up here in Canada on television for a while. And when I gave that up, I made the transition to YouTube. I kind of thought I wanted to be a non-political YouTuber. But you know, they keep dragging me back. People like my political hot takes. So yeah, my videos on political commentary always do much better than my videos on the history of popsicles or the kind of things I want to make videos on.
So is Pierre Poilievre here to stay?
As leader of the party, it seems like that. I mean, he's still he's personally very unpopular, but the party is still doing quite well. There's kind of a disconnect, right? So like Carney is very personally popular, his party is not. Pierre is very personally unpopular, but his party is still relatively competitive. So, you know, and he's very beloved by the base. He's got a real sort of hold on the base, and as is often the case in these kinds of things, you can't replace somebody with nobody, and the Conservative Party doesn't have a strong bench. It's
interesting you say that, because I feel like in America we're suffering, or we're witnessing a similar kind of disconnect between the base and like an internal friction with the party heads and where the sort of national party is. So yeah, I mean, similar things in different countries.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems to me that like the Democratic Party polls much worse than individual sort of figureheads, right? Like if it was just like, are you going to vote Democrat? People say no. Are you going to vote for this particular Democrat? People are much more open-minded, right?
Well, recently, as Hutch, I'm sure, is dying to say, the generic polling has been getting better for the Democrats in hypothetical matchups. Like before, it was middling, like 2-3%, but recently, do you have the numbers in front of you, Hutch? They've been much better, even though the popularity of the party among its own base is not that good.
I don't know. I feel like we can just confidently say, I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like we can just confidently say that the general ballot polls have just been pretty spectacularly wrong. Because I don't know how to make sense of the overperformance over the last year. That. It's like, you know, it'll be like generic generic ballot, like D+3, and then it's an overperformance on average of like 12 points. So there's something going on with the polling. The polling's just generally been kind of fucky ever since Trump got into politics here. So yeah.
He seems to elude the pollsters somehow when he's on the ballot. They're like accounting for Trump, but they just like undershoot. And then when he's not, they're like maybe they're recalibrating their models, or they fail to recalibrate their models, and
think-
they get like the non-Trump factor for those elections, and they just overestimate Republicans.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to start adding a little margin of error bar, and then also a Trump margin of error bar with his little face on it. On the graph.
No, I think you're right though. I think however they're weighting it with Trump not on the ballot is just not picking up the accurate vibes here. But there's no question that the Dem approval number, the approval rating for the party is very, very low, like historically low.
Yeah.
So there is a disconnect there for sure.
We need a Carney-like figure to take us by the balls, someone to really bring home centrism and make it appeal to the masses. Although I gather that the Liberal Party in Canada is buoyed by a lot of like pensioners and older people and middle-aged people, and it seems, at least what I'm told by conservative Canadian Reddit, is that all the young people are fans of Pierre Poilievre and are sick of the Liberals.
Yeah, there was actually a story one of my friends wrote in one of our papers up here just the other day, that Canada is like very much like an outlier in sort of the Western world in terms of like how popular the Conservative Party is with young people and how popular the center-left party is with old people. Like and that has to do with sort of some particularities about Canadian culture and actually, frankly, about Trump himself, right? Like that Trump and 51st state rhetoric and all that kind of stuff, like that panders to this very particular kind of sense of sort of liberal Canadian nationalism, which is, something that's very common among boomers and was, fostered in memories of Vietnam and the draft dodgers and, even hatred of Ronald Reagan and stuff like that, right? Like this idea that Canada is like the progressive yin to the right-wing yang of America. That's like a kind of frame that really resonates, I think, with sort of people of my parents' generation, but less so with, with kids who grew up in like the Obama age and that kind of thing.
So you said you used to work for WAPO. How did you get into that job? And then what made you want to transition to doing it on your own?
Well, I was just kind of recruited. At one point, this is kind of a somewhat dark sort of angle to this, but at one part, so like the Washington Post was recruiting sort of target audiences in other countries, and they wanted to get pundits from different countries to sort of work for the paper and to offer commentary on that country from a sort of local perspective, right? Instead of getting an American correspondent to, offer analysis of the politics of that country, you would get someone from that country to write about it in the pages of the Post. And so I was brought on, and the reason why I say it was dark was because I was one of the people that was hired, but another guy who was hired to do commentary on Saudi Arabia, you might have heard of, Jamal Khashoggi, was hired as part of that same initiative.
Wow.
So, but, I was writing about Canadian politics for 5 years at the Post, or 5 years or so. And then, they had some editorial changes, and they actually weren't as interested in having that much foreign content in the opinion pages. And so, yeah, I kind of parted ways. But before then, I also, I was doing that while I was also a YouTuber. I started doing YouTube when I lost my job as a Canadian political pundit up here working for television, because the TV station I was working for actually went out of business. And then in the aftermath of that, I made the transition. It's a tough space.
You look like you did well for yourself. I'm looking, you got 1 million subscribers here. That's not horrible.
Got that gold button. That's what Soy Pill will be looking at in a few months. I'm guessing is calling everyone racist.
Yeah, I gotta start. I'm running out of Republican pundits. They need to crank out more of them.
Why IRI is actually racist.
Yeah, IRI, can you grift to the right? I need some more video content.
Sure, buddy, you can attack me.
I was gonna ask JJ, because did you interact with Jamal Khashoggi? Because I think this is kind of relevant as of recently. I don't know if we saw Trump get the question about Khashoggi and in front of the Saudi Arabians, and he said that's a very rude question, and whether or not you liked the guy, he was a controversial figure, and you shouldn't ask stuff like that. You're embarrassing our guest in front of America.
No, like I didn't like I was like on email chains with him and things, but like I never interacted with him directly. But what I can say is that obviously his death was like hugely sort of traumatizing to the post sort of community, right? And I remember very much like how people were talking about it and in the aftermath of that. And then so for Trump to be that sort of cavalier, and for also like a big part of the Jamal Khashoggi story as well is that like Jamal Khashoggi's like commentary was, you know, like quite mild by the context of these sorts of things. Like he was writing about, you know, the royal family and all that in the way that like I might write about Carney or Trudeau or something. Like just very sort of base level stuff. It's not like, oh, they should kill him or something like that. Like it's just routine political commentary of the sort that is very normal for American-based political observers to write and comment. Right. And so the idea that he would pay with his life for something as innocuous as just kind of like generic sort of foreign policy analysis and criticism and, you know, takes on the state of Saudi politics and governance, like that was what made it so appalling on some level. It was just this absurd, grotesque, hideous overreaction to such a, you know, from the perspective of such a thin-skinned regime. And then for Trump to be like, oh, well, you know, like maybe he sort of had it coming and let's not shed too many tears. You know, he was no angel himself. Like it's completely like repulsive.
Yeah. And
I think he called it a bad deal in his first term, like the murder and dismemberment
bad deal.
Yeah. I mean, he has zero. He doesn't give a shit.
Well,
and I just
it
like
might be worse than that, Pisco.
Yeah.
Because sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, you go.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you guys heard that there was a phone call that he had with MBS that someone had overheard, and this isn't classified. This is still classified, but I forgot who was calling for the declassification. This guy said, this is one of the more concerning things I've ever heard him say. And I think he's speculating, or I'm speculating, that he was on the phone with this guy, and he's like, yeah, I wish we could do that here, but we can't do that here. You know, like I think it goes beyond just, oh, he was callous. I think it's like he respects that. He wants that where we are.
Oh yeah.
Well, he just tweeted he wanted to execute Democrats because they're like, don't obey illegal orders from the military. And we have an announcement from Hegs at the Secretary of War that there's gonna like an investigation into Mark Kelly, who is in like I guess retired status, and to see if he should be court-martialed for saying something that has been nothing less of a like a truism in military. If you ever like talk to a military veteran or anybody, and I used to be a bartender, we used to do this, they would always say like you have an obligation to disobey illegal orders. Trump actually tweeted like a plaque that said something to that effect, and so all the Democrats are saying is nothing less than a truism. But they're starting this investigation, and Trump has been calling for their immediate imprisonment and execution.
Yeah, it's like reminding people to wear your seatbelt when you're driving. You know, what's the big deal, man? Relax, Trump.
Well, yeah, Pisco, can you give us like the legal analysis of this? Like, I think the strongest devil's advocate of analysis against this is because they're saying that all these things that Trump is doing are illegal, which they are. But let's just assume that they just say, hey, everything he does is illegal. Therefore, you must disobey illegal orders. Therefore, you should turn against Trump. What about this is just, you know, truism in line with this is just how the law works? And what about this could be interpreted as some sort of like, hey, disobey the chief executive?
Yeah, that's so like it's just protected speech. It just is. Advocacy for illegal action in this country is protected speech. So saying that it's morally good for you to steal, it's morally good for you to murder, it's morally good for you to disobey lawful orders, it's more like all of that is protected speech. You can even say like the worst thing, like I agree, and there should be more like terrorist actions against this country. And that's all protected speech. What's not protected speech is the Brandenburg test, imminent calls to lawless action. And what you need there is imminence. You need intent for the thing to actually occur. It's a stringent test. And obviously for any kind of like conspiracy liability, you'd have to prove that there's a meeting of the minds to make like illegal things actually happen. And you're never going to prove that there, or like accomplice liability. So it's all a show. There's no good argument that this isn't protected speech, or what they're advocating for wouldn't itself be legal. And we can distinguish all day the bad faith comparisons to Jan 6 and the fake elector scheme. Happy to take those bad faith comparisons anytime, but it's all protected.
Well, it's all a distraction from Trump failing to accomplish his campaign promises, failing to release the Epstein files, failing to bring down prices, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think it's going anywhere.
He's a lame duck president already, I think. I mean, I can't think of really. I mean, maybe they do another reconciliation bill, I guess, in 2026. But apart from that, he doesn't seem to have any policy goals in terms of legislation. And I don't know. I just feel like they've overplayed their hand throughout this entire presidency. And the news about Comey and what's her name, Tish James? Is it Letitia James?
Yeah,
That is just another example of the system checking their authoritarian impulses. It's just like another signal of their own impotence. Like, I don't know. I just, for me, like Trumpism, the only time that the brand has been worse than it is right now, or the political strength has been worse, is like right after January 6th for like a couple months afterwards. And then he kind of picked up a little bit in the polls. But I don't know. I just feel like all this stuff is like, it's alarming. It's scary. It should make us worried about the state of politics in America, but it's also just a sign of how weak he is. Because whatever this thing is with Mark Kelly, it's probably going to meet the same end as the stuff with Comey and James.
Yeah, I was going to
imagine
ask how similar that was, Pisco. Like you said, this Comey thing is totally frivolous. Is this stuff investigating any of these people for sedition? Is that going to go the exact same way as Comey?
I think it will. I mean, I'm less familiar, honestly, with the like the code for military justice or whatever. And maybe there'll be some internal DOW, sanctions on him or whatever. But the Constitution applies to the military. It's not like this carve out where the military doesn't need to listen to the Constitution as much as Trump would like you to think otherwise with his like deployments in various different places. They have to like pretend that the Constitution doesn't apply to them. It does, and so there's no way around that First Amendment analysis. I think even if you are a member of the military, and so I think that even this Hegseth is trying to be as provocative as possible and not focus on it. That's how I read it. Even though it's very provocative, even though like it's very troubling or whatever, my sense is the fact that they singled out Mark Kelly, they say, oh, we might reactivate him. We might institute a tribunal. That to me signals to me that I think that they don't want us focus on this and they have to do this kind of play act for Trump to make it seem like this is really, really important.
Why Mark Kelly? Is it because he's a possible 2028 candidate?
It's a hook that they have to try to institute some toothless restriction without going all the way in terms of criminal sanctions. So maybe they can give him some dishonorable discharge, or they can do some censure or something. But it's,
but why
my
him,
opinion,
not the other four?
Because I think there's some distinction in his military service. The others are like either CIA, ex-CIA, or they discharged as opposed to retired or inactive status. There was something like that. And so my guess is this is a convenient hook to limit the exposure to a particular person. But obviously that has the trade-off of A, if you don't do anything, it's going to be just as toothless as Comey. And then B, you start to make a martyr out of Mark Kelly, who does have potential ambitions greater than that. And you potentially bolster him for a serious run in Arizona when he's up for re-election. So this is it's a bad strategy, and it can backfire in very obvious ways.
I think if they go through with it, he would immediately shoot up to like number 2 or number 1 for the 2028 primary polls.
Yeah, like in the
they
same
would
way
make it.
What was it? Trump's numbers after the felony indictments actually went up, right? Like
in New York,
they shot up. Yeah, I mean, it was like DeSantis was a decent amount behind him, but not like crazy. It was like 15 points. But then he got indicted for that first time, and then Trump just, I mean, it was crazy. Yeah.
JJ, I want to get your opinion as a non-American. Like every time I travel to any other country, there's this like completely almost like insulated vibe of how people view America. Like, is Hutch's assessment of Trump being at his lowest point since post January 6th? Do you get that same sort of a Canadian analysis of the view of how crazy things are going over here? Is it the second or maybe most worst point in American history for Trump?
I think everybody is very much interested at like from the foreign perspective. I think everybody's interested in the midterms, right? Because it's true. Like you've been hearing all of this sort of narrative that Trump is sort of passed into this kind of lame duck phase, and the last week feels like the last 2 weeks maybe feel like it was a sort of significant turning point. But I think that what a lot of people outside the US are very interested in seeing is that if there actually is a formal rebuke, right? I'm sure we all sort of have this kind of sort of lingering trauma of the idea like, oh, Trump's really stepped in it now, and like to see him bounce back from this one, right? But it's
Let's
one of
see
these.
him wriggle out of this little jam.
Well, it's just, it's like, I'm sure we all remember, like, when Trump actually lost to Biden, like how long it took before we could all sort of make peace with the closure that this had actually happened, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but I think, what you guys have been saying is a good point. Like, it is kind of hard to see how he, kind of gets the mojo back. And I think it's kind of telling that he's actually now seeming to do what actually a lot of lame duck presidents tend to do in their second term, which is just get really preoccupied with foreign affairs and kind of just check out of American domestic politics altogether.
That's
It's
interesting.
easier.
Wait, so hold on. Explain that to me. What do you mean? What are the historical analogs here?
Well,
LBJ,
I think
Reagan.
Yeah, even like Obama, like Bill Clinton trying to make his peace deal in the last year of his presidency with Arafat and the Israelis, right? Like, there's kind of a sense that, like, when you don't have, there's no possibility of a third term, right? So you start to think about your legacy, and then you think of like the great presidents, and what did the great presidents do? Oh, they had some sort of foreign policy achievement, and that's often what presidents are perceived to be doing in their final years in office.
So give us your assessment as JJ, putting aside the
JJ.
Canadian aspect of it. Like, what's first politically, just for my sense, I don't really know. How do you align yourself, and how do you view Trump's term? Do you think it's successful, or what are your thoughts on it, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, like, so I come from like a conservative background, and like in Canada, I've always been sort of more conservative minded as far as punditry goes. But I think like in an American context, like I'm very much like a sort of never Trump kind of bulwark sort of type of guy, right? In fact, actually, I think I've become a lot less conservative because of Trump, right? Because like the fact that so many conservatives fall in line behind, a man as obviously repulsive as him in so many ways is deeply disturbing and discombobulating, and and makes you sort of think twice about the sort of movement that you've previously considered yourself aligned with. And so I think Trump has just been terrible on every level. I mean, I think especially as a Canadian, I must say, these tariffs have just been atrocious, terrible. And as somebody that really values good relations between the U.S. and Canada, almost above any other issue, Trump has been, beyond awful. He has allowed, politicians like Carney to just demagogue in a sort of anti-American way and sort of whip up this kind of anti-American sentiment in order to further his own political career and push for protectionist policies in Canada that I view to be very destructive and bad. So, I mean, I don't need to tell you guys why Trump is terrible. I agree on all of the same metrics, but it is uniquely bad in a Canadian context as well, just because he gives legitimacy to a kind of Canadian anti-Americanism that I myself have always viewed as one of the great sort of corrosive forces in Canadian politics.
Well, JJ, you famously have the current president picture in your apartment at all times. Do you have a photo of Trump behind you, or have you decided not to do that?
I don't actually. I had one during the first term, and that was even a little tough, and it got a lot of comments. But like in the second term, like, no, I just couldn't handle it. Although I was thinking about just to be sort of cheeky in the same way that Trump, in the Hall of Presidents in the White House, where we have the Biden auto pen thing. I was thinking of maybe replacing the Biden picture with, remember that picture of Trump in the Chicago or the Colorado state legislator? The really sort of like fat-faced Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking maybe doing that one.
Sure.
Well, this is potentially a good segue because, for as horribly as I think Trump is face planning right now, there's somebody else who's doing what I think is quite the opposite, which is Mamdani. I thought that White House meeting was remarkable on so many different levels. Soypill actually said that he invited you on, JJ, because you had some thoughts about that specifically. So why don't we kick off?
Yeah, let me show his tweet, actually. First, I mean, this is the photo you were talking about?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Hey.
Yeah, I think you should put that one up. Maybe like also make it a little bigger, give him like the piggy ears. And, yeah, but let's see. This is the tweet that I saw, and I was like immediately like, you know what? JJ should come on Live and Learn. You said it's funny, or actually here, you read this one, JJ. This is your voice.
Okay. So I say it's funny seeing some leftists strain to come up with an ideological theory of why it was a good thing that Trump liked Mamdani.
Yes,
and I was just I was thinking about that because it's like, Mamdani is sort of like, the new hotness, and obviously a lot of left-wing people, leftist sort of people have viewed him with great reverence and all of that. And I feel like the theory that he is this kind of golden boy who can kind of do no wrong from the perspective of sort of the more ideological sort of left-wing people, I think it's been very difficult to come up with a theory, an ideological theory, which I think is how a lot of his fans tend to view politics, as to why it was a good thing that he and Trump kind of got along so swimmingly. And there's been a lot of like very bizarre takes, I think, as people struggle to come up with an ideological theory of it. The idea like, oh, what we're seeing is some sort of horseshoe theory alliance, and Trump gets people in the way Mamdani gets people. It's been a lot of weird stuff. So I'd be curious if any of you guys have a coherent theory of what this means beyond just that they got along.
Yeah, Hutch, it sounds like you maybe kind of disagree with this. Give us your take.
I don't think it's ideological at all. I think Mamdani went in there really prepared. I think his team told him to flatter Trump and be charming and present himself very professionally, like make sure his like haircut was good and all that stuff. And I think he just, I think he went in with a game plan to manipulate Trump, and I think it worked. And I think he got way more out of that meeting than Trump did. I mean, that endorsement from Trump will translate to political capital that he can spend in New York City. He only won by like 52% or something like that. There's a lot of conservative New Yorkers, and that kind of an appearance with Trump probably will translate into support for him. I thought it was also remarkable that he seemingly, I don't know if he did this on purpose, but he got Trump to defang Elise Stefanik's line of attack against Hochul, which I thought was fucking insane, because there was a reporter that asked him, Elise Stefanik says says he's a jihadist. What do you think? And Trump said no, and that sort of a thing. So it's like, if you're Stefanik, are you like, okay, do we come up with a new attack ad? Do we just keep going with that? But I mean, I don't think there's like a horseshoe thing here at all. I think if he went in there and was antagonistic and picked a fight, then the tone of that meeting would have been completely different. But I think he went in there with a game plan, and I think it worked pretty masterfully, in my opinion.
I'm going to say, JJ, I agree with Hutch on this one. It really does seem like he charmed the pants off him doing the, like, I want to say that he bought him that new outfit he's wearing that matches Mamdani's outfit. He must have given him some sort of trophy or gift.
The Michael Scott outfit when he's good.
Yeah. And he kind of brown nosed a little bit. He did his little Mamdani charm, and like he got Trump to be like, "Well, this guy, he can't be so bad. You can call me a fascist if you want. That's fine." Like if he's able to do that, I think this is going to translate to like political capital, where the hey, he's an evil communist, we need to deport him people. They have nothing now because their president just said, I like him, and that's all it took.
But it is a little weird. Like it does kind of give a sense that we're kind of like defining success around whatever it was that he did, right? Because Mamdani, like if we remember his victory speech, he's thundering at the podium, "Mr. President, I know you're listening, turn the volume up," right? Like he was elected on a platform of being very combative and confrontational with Trump. And so the idea that people are now kind of spinning, oh, this was the master plan all along, he's going to win Trump over with his charisma, and then Trump will be an ally, like that to me just feels, the logic of that feels a little tortured.
What's the contradiction? No. I see that you're asking for like an ideological explanation for it, but like, what's the contradiction in a Democratic Socialist meeting with the president about issues and not seemingly giving any, did he give any concession to Trump? Is there any indication that he would do something inconsistent with what his speech is?
But wouldn't you expect there to be at least a little tension, right? Like it just seems like the complete absence of any tension. Like when we contrast,
I just don't see what the contradiction is. There's
the contradiction is that the contradiction is that he was elected to be a sort of fighter, right? A source of resistance to the Trump administration.
Sure.
And I just don't feel like we really saw a glimpse of that in the Oval Office meeting.
Just because he was cordial.
Well, Pisco, if I may, I think there isn't a contradiction because the way that he's been campaigning in general, there are some exceptions to this, but I complimented this several times in the podcast, was very not anti someone, but pro whatever he is. Although there was that thing where he like brought the Cuomo accusers into the audience or whatever. But for the most part, he ran a very like just pro-platform campaign, not like a smear thing. And I think the reason this isn't a contradiction is this is him saying, hey, Trump, not turn up the volume because we're coming for you. It's turn up the volume. Look, we're successful. We just won, and we're going to keep doing it. You need to listen to how this works. And this kind of falls in line with this of, hey, I'm going to go meet with you and tell you, hey, this is what my plan for New York is. And like that won Trump over. I think that almost isn't contradictory, if that makes sense.
Oh no, it's totally in line with it. I mean, when Mamdani, there's no contradiction. In fact, I think it's bolstering. Mamdani was like nice to Trump supporters and understanding of Trump supporters in a way sometimes that I feel like was, me, I'm pretty fiery against Trump. And coming out of the meeting, Trump is not saying I'm going to send in the National Guard to New York. He's saying the opposite. Maybe if he asked for it. Trump is not saying this guy's a crazy communist. He can't be a good mayor. He's saying he could be a great mayor. And so I just don't understand what the contradiction is. It seemed like Mamdani stood on business, and yeah, maybe he was cordial, but I didn't like presuppose Mamdani's opposition to be like useless, crying and being angry for no reason. That now, if Trump asked for a concession and Mamdani like gave it, or is doing a corrupt bargain or doing some kind of like horrible shit that we find out about later, then yeah, I'd say there's a contradiction. But I don't really see that there's any necessary
if Trump
social
makes Mamdani ambassador to Turkey or something.
Yeah.
But swap out Mamdani with any other Democrat. Do you have the same conclusion?
100%. Wait. Yeah, 100%. My problem was, my problem.
I don't believe it.
Hang on a second. My problem with some of the Democrats who met with Trump in the Oval Office are when they're cringe, like Whitmer is. Like that was a cringe moment. Everyone here agrees that was a cringe moment, right?
When she tried to
hide her face from the camera.
Yeah.
So I think that's cringe, and it doesn't have to do with like Governor Whitmer meeting with Trump. This was my position in the first term. Like, do I think it was cringe when Gavin Newsom met Trump after the disasters in California? No. Did you hear me call him out about that? No. What we have a problem with are when Democrats are weak or sycophantic, or like, for example, Fetterman, who like signs on bullshit legislation as sponsors or even votes for it, right? That's when we have issues with that. But just meeting with the president, find me sometime where I've said or someone else has said, you should never meet with the president, even when you're like a local official. You can't. There's no contradiction.
But would you have been disappointed if they had fought? Like if they had a Zelensky-esque confrontation, would that have upset you? Would you have been like, that's not what I wanted from Mamdani?
Depends on what, right? So like, if Mamdani like just starts talking shit for no reason and Trump's actually being cordial, I'd be like, that's just like a stupid thing to do in the moment, to just like pick a fight out of nowhere. That said, if like Trump starts like shit talking New York and Mamdani is like not responsive, that would disappoint me. It just has to do with the nature of the interaction. Likewise, like, am I mad at Zelensky when Zelensky goes and says, Trump is a great friend of Ukraine, we're gonna have this meeting? No, I mean, like, I don't think that there's any ideological explanation necessary, because I don't think there's an ideological inconsistency with democratic socialism as espoused by Mamdani and what he did in front of Trump. I mean, like, it'd be no different than like Bernie Sanders hashing out a deal with Trump. And on some things, right, like even Democrats are voting for Republican packages. And I just don't see that as anything undermining his ideology or what they're talking. Maybe there's other things that undermine that ideology, but it wasn't that interaction.
I mean, I thought like what stood out to me was just the confidence. That was really something that really landed for me. I mean, you got to think like this guy was relatively obscure just like 5 months ago. He's this like rookie assembly member from New York. And then 5 months later, he's in a White House meeting with Donald Trump where he didn't really back down off of any of his positions. He called what was happening in Gaza a genocide, like he didn't give any kind of like rhetorical concessions or anything. I mean, he was giving very political answers, but he was remarkably composed and poised like the entire time. And for me, like if I'm a New York City constituent and I'm looking at that, I would probably view that as strength. And I think that would make me admire him a lot more if I was one of those constituents. I mean, I just thought the whole thing was like, so just imagine, like, think about like what the political fallout would have been if that meeting was catastrophic. Like if it went really, really bad, that probably would have annihilated Mamdani's entire political future. So he had a lot riding on that meeting. I think Pisco, you're even a little.
No, I don't think that his future is contingent on it. I think it could have gone poorly. And Mamdani would have been fine in the context of New York. It just depends on what Trump's behavior was. I think Trump is ultimately in the driver's seat in terms of whether the meeting is cordial or not cordial. Because I think that Zoran is just someone who if you meet him and you're like, I'm sure he'd be like more mean to Cuomo in a meeting because Cuomo's just been such a dick to him, interpersonally. But I'm sure if Cuomo got in a room with Mamdani, like he would start out being cordial. I don't expect him to be so emotionally fucking childish like Trump is and just fly off the handle. And so, yeah, I just don't. I think if it had gone poorly, it would have been more of a reflective of what Trump did. There are things that it's not unfalsifiable. Like there are things that Mamdani could have done that would have disappointed me. One thing is to like excessively praise Trump or to say that, I don't think Trump is a fascist anymore because I met him and looked him in the eye. I think that would have been cucked out and bullshit. But
like the
I didn't see that.
Bill Maher thing where he's like,
actually,
he's a real human being, and I don't know why everyone's so mean to him.
Because they get charmed by him because Trump is actually charming and funny. And that's like Dems and libs need to like actually understand that he can disarm some resistance libs and people who meet him and some of these like influencers and TV personalities. He can charm them. And so what I'm looking for is, did you get charmed by Trump? Are you being a cuck? Are you being weak? That's what I'm looking for. And I don't think any of this is contradicting it, let alone like the ideological tenets of democratic socialism. I don't know what would contradict that from me.
Guy, you look like you had some thoughts.
Well, look, I appreciated the moment. I thought Trump was actually a president for a moment, and I appreciate Mamdani bringing that out in him. And he is going to be our president for another 3 years, so I'd like more days like that. But I can't help but be kind of salty about how the left has been demanding a fighter and someone to stand up to Trump and someone to resist him. And Mamdani goes in there and they have a bro fest and everybody's making excuses about this is great. It's fantastic. And I think he made a mockery of the whole calling Trump a fascist when he started giggling. And as the reporters asked him about it, like, yeah, I think he's a fascist.
Well, you
didn't really have any meaning behind it.
He didn't really giggle in that moment, though.
Like he was smiling his ass off the whole time. Like, no, he's a fascist. Yeah,
I don't know. I had a totally
like
different.
nervous
weird
politician. Like, hey, I have to tell this guy to his face that I think he's a fascist. That's kind of.
Well, but it just shows how ridiculous the whole thing is. Like,
that Trump is a fascist, or that Mamdani is willing to meet
just
with
like
a fascist?
Calling him a fascist, it's like trying to label someone a racist or something. Like, now what?
Okay, you serious? Wait. So you don't think he's a fascist? You don't think Trump's a fascist?
I don't think it's worth arguing. Is he a fascist? Is he not?
Whether it is or not, do you think he is? Whether you think it's worth arguing, do you think he is?
Well, I think he's done some fascist things.
See, this is the thing. Like, I think that if you take a notion like fascism, and if you think it's overly broad and too used or whatever, I mean, we had this conversation with P.F. Young. Some of you maybe have done the thing with P.F. Young. I think it's totally honest to call Trump's presidencies authoritarian and fascistic, and some of the key supporters is fascistic based on what I take to be the standard usage of that term. But I don't think that there's anything inconsistent with like meeting with what you take to be a fascist if that's the best situation for your constituencies. And I don't think it puts to bed that notion that at all, unless you're willing to fight on the terms of fascism. Unless you think like you would have to get some notion in your head about why it's improper to call him a fascist to say that it's improper to meet with them on that basis.
Well, it does. It feels like it makes fascism a little milder in terms of an insult, right? If a fascist is just if a fascist is just someone that you just kind of do business with as a matter of course, I mean, that doesn't seem like it's that serious of an insult.
How is it related? I mean, what again? Like people have this notion in their head, right? That like you would never work with a fascist, you would never trade with a fascist. I'm assuming that there's some negative connotations with like communism or Islamic theocracy. We do business with these regimes. We do business.
I know, but it's controversial, right? It's got like we were just talking about MBS, right? When he's in the Oval Office, like we have some reservations about that. We feel like something is less than fully kosher when the president is, backslapping some fascist dictator from the Middle East, right?
Well,
what do you want Mamdani to do? Mamdani, I'm sorry, I'm not meeting with the president because he's a fascist. Even if you think
here's the thing,
ideologically is.
I want him to do exactly what he did, but I don't want other Democrats to get criticism for doing that too, which they have been for the last year, nonstop.
Yeah. Okay. Well, real quick.
That's inconsistent. I would condemn that.
So I was going to say the one credence I think is the most strong, and this is another tweet from JJ that I thought was worth having you on for, was this idea that like Gavin Newsom is this toothless Democrat who wasn't fighting back, but Mamdani, he charmed the pants off him. That's what we've been waiting for the whole time. And like I think Kyle Kalinske had put this out as well, and this baffled me because like of all the things that I think the Democrats needed, it was thank God Gavin Newsom is finally doing this redistricting. Thank God someone's fighting back. Thank God someone's pushing back against the rhetoric. But now like this post hoc narrative of like, oh, he's just complaining about mean tweets, but Mamdani, he did the right thing. This is the leftist spin that I think like I can.
Well, that's stupid. I mean, if you point to that specific thing, but that's a hypocrisy in leftist criticism, which you can always find. I mean, that shit's leftists have some of the dumbest criticism sometimes, especially of some Democrats. And maybe they were also criticizing Kamala for, I don't know. Kamala called Trump a fascist too. Kamala met. Go ahead.
This is a learning moment. This is a teachable moment now for leftists to see how politics actually works. And like, oh, you got to work with people in power. They're not going anywhere, and they're not.
You're optimistic
on the establishment. Rah, 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 rah. Like, come on.
I mean,
this is how politics works.
There's a practical reality here, and Mamdani represents 9 million people, and Donald Trump has signaled an antagonistic attitude towards New York City, and if he can foster a better relationship with Trump, then that could translate to better outcomes for New Yorkers. So, this is just the reality of politics. He's there representing his constituents. Like, JJ, I'm curious, like, what do you think was the point of that meeting for Mamdani, and do you think he accomplished his goals?
I mean, I think that it was just one of these sort of matter of course kind of things that in the Trump era, only now do they start to have like this weird layer of sort of discomfort and anxiety, just because Trump is such a sort of toxic presence, that these kind of ceremonial, kind of pointless, going through the motion kind of rituals that have until now just been the kind of thing that nobody pays attention to, suddenly they do. But at the same time, I think that, and part of the reason why I was tweeting the things that I did and why Niels was bringing them up was because I think that still at the end of the day, the easiest explanation is just that both men took the meeting like just on a very surface level, and that there's not much more to say about it than that, right? And I think in some ways, like, to see little glimpses of normalcy, little glimpses of ceremonial sort of tradition in the Trump era can be a little discombobulating, because the rhetoric is so heated and so high that we're expecting sort of every interaction with Trump to be sort of engorged with sort of political ideological significance. And I think that when an incident passes by in which it just kind of seems like both men were kind of friendly and got along, and nothing really of substance was discussed, and they just did a little photo op, I think that leaves some people kind of grasping for a deeper political significance, when it might have just been that both men were surprised that went as well as it did,
or grasping for more ideological contradiction. I don't really see one. I mean,
I'm bringing it up because like as Niels was saying, like, there were leftists who were trying to make,
I mean, there's some leftists who say dumb things. There's some libs who say dumb things.
And that's just what I was responding to.
It's not just some, Pisco. I think the backlash is for years we've heard this cry against the establishment Dems, calling Trump a fascist, saying everything Trump does is evil, but then working with him. And it's like, how can you support this bill? How could you possibly legitimize what you call this existential threat? And then Mamdani is kind of doing the same thing, which is good.
But Soypil, that runs the gamut with respect. I mean, like, some of this shit, I agree with you. So stupid, so dumb to make those comparisons. But on some of the stuff, like, for example, support for the Lake and Riley Act, defections on these, you and I, guys, we have some disagreements on some of these votes for the continuing resolution where they do vote with Trump. On that shit, I think that's substantive. And I don't think it's stupid to say, hey, you're doing what Trump wants in that context. But a pro forma meeting with the mayor-elect and the occupant of the Oval Office, I don't think that's crazy or contradictory at all. And in fact, if you take a bad view of leftism and socialism in the past, right, like the Nazis made the deal with Stalin, the Chinese communists made a deal with the nationalists, like lefties make deals all the time. I don't think every political group makes deals and stuff and has relationships with other parties. I don't see that as undermining, unless one of the tenets of their philosophy is to never meet with someone of the other persuasion.
Well, Pisco, let's end it with this, because I think you might agree here. Do you not think that if Mamdani had gone in there and not had like a shouting match, but had like condescended and contradicted Trump the entire time and made him look dumb, that the same leftists would have been like, this is how you get it done? How dare those Democrats not know what to do for the past 10 years? He killed it in the exact same way, almost as
would they find any way? I don't know. My guess is probably, a lot of them would. I'm just being honest. I think a lot of them would. But I also know that leftists love doing this kind of internal hate and this like internal purity testing. And so they have reputations for both, for like ignoring, like the Graham Plattner is a great example, right? That situation where if you can imagine the same being true of a centrist Democrat, and all the lefties would be like, you want to vote in a fucking Nazi, and they do the same thing with the what's the brigade in Ukraine of the far left? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And in a second, obviously, I would grant you that lefties would have some dumb contradiction there. I mean, that's easy, but they also have a reputation for like internal purity testing, and I'm already seeing that too So it runs the gamut, and yeah, I can find some dumb critiques from lefties, and I would agree with that. And so if it's pointing that out, I guess I agree with the spirit of JJ's tweet. Anything else though? I don't think there's a contradiction at all.
Nails, you must bring up as well the other, because it's worth noting that there is a kind of other dialogue that's happening simultaneously on the right. Did you see that other thing I tweeted about how Fox was hyping the meeting before it happened? Like Fox had this big graphic done up, and it shows Trump and it shows Mamdani, and then in huge letters it's "Showdown with Socialism." Right, so it's like their audience was being primed to expect.
But that's a contradiction. Wait, it's a great point, but that's a contradiction because Trump said that if you elect Mamdani, the whole city will go to shit. You won't have a city anymore. It'll be horrible. The contradiction is in Trump's approach. Trump is the one saying he's going to be a great mayor.
No, that's right. And
did they brown his skin in this graphic? I don't think he's this color.
It's true though. Like MAGA, and like I've heard sort of people bring up that like MAGA now has to sort of like reorient their whole sort of narrative about what Mamdani represents.
That's why I think
he was the new boogeyman.
That's why I think like that meeting to me, seems like a couple of you guys think that it was, just kind of like a surface level meeting. But I don't know, to me, it felt very high level. To me, I felt like Mamdani demonstrated very genuine, a surprising, like shocking amount of political talent for someone without as much experience. Like for him to walk in there, and I think he went in there wanting that meeting to go the way that it did. And in doing so, like it does kind of mute a lot of the attacks against him from the right. And so that's just, that just makes his life a little bit easier. And especially during these first like 6 to 9 months of his mayorship, whatever you say.
Mayorship.
There's a lot of pressure on him to deliver, on his agenda right now. And so I just don't think he needs any of those distractions. I think that this meeting helped him a lot.
Were you surprised, Hutch, by the outcome of the meeting? Because I was not. I thought there's a very good chance these two get along and they present just kind of a pragmatic face afterwards. We're both New Yorkers. We want to fix the problems. I think Trump surprised me a bit, but Mamdani did not surprise me at all. But were you surprised?
No, I was very surprised because, I was thinking of, do you guys remember when the South African president came and they they ambushed him with like a sizzle reel, like a 3-minute sizzle reel that meant to humiliate him. And I was also thinking of the way they tried to humiliate Zelensky. And so I was in my head thinking like they were going to try to do something similar. And maybe honestly, like my headcanon is like, maybe they were, but Mamdani was so charming that Trump just decided to wing it and be friendly with him. I could be making some shit up, but like, if that's the case, I think that demonstrates genuine talent, like a rare kind of talent.
Which Trump meeting pissed me off more was Biden's after Trump's election. I mean, say what you want about the Mamdani meeting. Biden was like positively beaming after Trump won. And Biden was like, it seemed like he was happy Trump won. He was how you doing, Jack? Yeah, welcome home. Dude. That was wild.
Print makes my skin crawl to this day. Welcome home. Like
that's a guy who, listen, one of the most important fundamental pillars of American liberal democracy is the peaceful transfer of power. And I understand that it's the height of irony that, Trump did what he did in 2020. But I do think
he was beaming.
It's not a dick suck transfer of power. It's a peaceful transfer of power.
I think Biden was coming from a place of like, I don't think he wanted to beam that way. I feel like that was probably a really difficult
he was just happy that Kamala lost. He wanted to say, "I told you so." He wanted to say it. There are internal reports that. Yeah.
I think in his mind he was doing his part to
I respect him for that much. You know what? Transfer of power, we'll grant him that, but he didn't have to be so happy. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to start taking these kinds of like, taking a attack on the tenor or I don't know, good nature of a meeting, I think you start with some other people.
I mean, Obama was very friendly with him too. I don't know if you guys remember, but
true.
They had their,
Trump had the potential. This is what's so tragic about the whole Trump thing is if it weren't for his deficiencies in character, he had the potential to be a really good president because he could have brought Democrats together on some major piece of legislation. He could have had a grand bargain on the border and the Dreamers. He could have done some crazy things because he had a lot of control over that party. And so I have no problem with how, and when he was, with people giving him the benefit of the doubt in the first term, I mean, he could have done some good things if he had just put himself aside, his ego aside, but he didn't.
Yeah, I don't know, Pisco. That's like the if my mom had wheels, she'd be a bike. Like, yeah, if he
I
wasn't
know.
himself,
Yeah,
like
if he wasn't who he
I
was.
guess. I guess.
But you know what I mean? There was this narrative, right? That Trump, that was all campaign stuff, and he was actually gracious in defeats or when he was winning against like Ben Carson and Ted Cruz. He would say nice things after the win, and so you got this sense that like Trump knew it was all an act. And even now, there's some hints of that, right? With the Marjorie Taylor Trader Brown thing, right? And afterwards being like, still, I thank her for her service. There's some like wink stuff that I don't think is genuine, but there was a feeling among people that this would be the pivot. Did you hear that term thrown around? Like this is the pivot when he becomes a more normal president and where he starts thinking about America.
Not in this term, but last term I do remember hearing that a lot. But yeah, no, exactly when he said the fascist thing, and it's almost like he's like, it's part of the game. You call me fascist.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so speaking of Mamdani, there's there was a clip of him a couple days ago where what was it? Christine Welker, is that her name? Asked him if he endorsed Jeffries in that potential primary contest, and he just without a hesitation said yes.
Well,
that was actually pretty controversial. I don't know if you guys want to unpack that a little bit if we want to move on to a different topic. But
he also endorsed him as the next Speaker of the House.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of lefties that are fucking furious at him for doing that. But here's my calculation, and JJ, you tell me what you think.
Sure.
I think the calculation from people like AOC and Mamdani is they understand that there is no political appetite to unseat Jeffries. The guy that is potentially going to challenge him or whatever doesn't have the juice to beat him. I think they just internally calculated that there's no chance of beating him. So why would you throw your name in that hat and just sacrifice political capital for nothing?
I think that's true. I think that also Mamdani, now that he is going to be the mayor of New York City, is not eager to make, one of his first gestures this early to be a force of division in the party. Like, I don't think that is kind of what he wants his political brand to be associated with, particularly, after he just, fought what was a divisive race for Democrats, going up against Cuomo and, not being the establishment darling and all the rest of that, right? Like, does he want that to be sort of the glowing tiara on his head? I don't think so. I think this is a very kind of low stakes, I think, sop he can give to the sort of, the establishment wing at a time when the stakes are pretty low, because for reasons you said, like, it's just not really, this doesn't seem like it's a particularly live discussion, someone other than Jeffries to be leading the party at this point.
I hear you, JJ, and I agree, but I just have to point out again, the left has been screaming about Jeffries and Schumer being terrible and feckless and losers, and then all of a sudden Mamdani says that Jeffries good, and they're like, Jeffries is good.
Yeah.
No,
got our firmware update. We love Jeffries.
I don't know. I disagree. I think most of them are pissed. I don't think most of them are like fully on board with Jeffries.
No, they're gonna fall in line.
They will fall in line.
That was so ominous. They'll fall in line.
Well, I feel like what you. I guess in some ways it's if for sort of the more moderate-minded people, I suppose it is a good thing though. Like, it's good if, in my opinion, I suppose if Mamdani is using his political capital to sell out the far left and sort of show himself to be a good, Democrat team player. I'm not going to complain, but yeah, it is kind of funny that. Is Mamdani going to be a sort of figure that has this kind of power over this faction? Because, the far left has been so desperate for a W, right? Like, I don't think Bernie Sanders and AOC have really been cutting it lately, but now they actually have a man with an actual position of significance in charge in a major jurisdiction in America. And so maybe they'll be a little bit deferential to him, and maybe that will change the narrative on things like the congressional leadership.
Yeah, I see this not going similar to the AOC, where you're going to get the crazy lefties. I think we had Prime Kai's on, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't like AOC anymore." And it's like,
keep his name out your mouth.
No, I like Prime. I do like Prime, but the idea that he's like anti AOC after all the amazing stuff she's done, after all the she's really separated the wheat from the chaff and showed like, hey, I can keep being the leftist that you want me to be and work with the people who have the power. I think Mamdani has the same political instincts, and this is going to cut off the edge of the leftist group that's like, well, if you don't do exactly this and you're not constantly critiquing power to a detriment, then you're not my guy. I think he's going to go the same way.
Mamdani's aware of his constraints. He strikes me as a man who's knowledgeable about his constraints, and he knows he doesn't have the kind of pull over the base that Trump has. He doesn't have the office that someone like Trump has, where he's able to actually put pressure on incumbents, let alone the leader of the House among the Democrats. And he is aware that he has the awesome responsibility of his ideological project running on his success or not. And his success is going to be determined, unfortunately, and probably to the chagrin of many leftists, by being able to work within the system. He's not going to be able to change it. This was part of the pitch that a lot of more centrist Democrats gave when they were selling Mamdani to the kind of Mamdani scared crowd among the Democrats who wanted to vote for Cuomo or someone less radical. Is he does not have either the institutional, popular, or nationwide strength to undo the system in which he lives. And part of that is the Democratic Party itself, and certainly who's in Congress. He doesn't have control over that. So it'd be a useless gesture for him, even though I do think that it's time. I think that Jeffrey should go. I think that Schumer should go. Do I think that it's smart for him to say that publicly? No, I don't.
Yeah. JJ, I just want to piggyback off of what you were saying, because I've been banging this drum for a little while now. Like my sense of things, and you guys can tell me if you agree, but I think the left has been pretty stagnant since about 2018. They haven't really dramatically risen their numbers. DSA membership kind of plateaued, dipped a little bit. I'm sure there's going to be a surge after this, but
well, Hutch, I made it to the top of the BreadTube subreddit with 30 upvotes on one of my videos. I'll have you know.
Oh, okay. Wait, what? What does that have to do with what I was saying?
No, the left being BreadTube was huge in 2018, and now it's like a dead subreddit. It's like
gotcha.
empty as hell.
I don't know shit about BreadTube, but no, but I mean they've been they've been feeling burned for quite some time. I mean they never got over 2016. They definitely didn't get over 2020. After the moderates dropped out and coalesced around Biden, they saw that as the establishment rat fucking Biden or Bernie, and they've been really pissed about that. And I think what Mamdani represented to them was the potential for a resurgence. I think they are feeling very emboldened right now, and I feel like they want to clean house. They want to get rid of every Democratic congressman and woman that have ever taken a cent from AIPAC. And, they essentially want a left-wing Tea Party movement. And there's similar kind of, I think, pressure on Plattner to sort of fulfill that kind of wish for them right now as well. But at the same time, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. There's just a lot of pressure on Mamdani. And if he falls on his face, I think they know that would be a pretty significant setback for them. But
and rightly or wrongly, it would discredit some of their ideological positions, even though, in fairness, he's limited. He needs Hochul on board, and probably in order to govern in a way that is effective, he's going to have to not upset certain constituencies. And it's not just Democrats. It's also Republicans and interest groups within the city, including, for example, the police. And so he issued a statement sort of repudiating his past defund the police or police are racist statement that he gave in the exuberance of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so he gave a statement kind of saying, oh, this statement was made at a particular time and it should not be removed from its context. Kind of a weak backing down.
It's just smart politics. I think he's smart. I think he's a smart guy.
Well, Pisco, I'm curious your thoughts on this. His retaining of Commissioner Tisch. I mean, this is Eric Adams is police commissioner who was working with the Trump administration and ICE and whatever corruption was going on there. And nobody even cares. They don't even bat an eye at this. I mean, seems ridiculous to me to keep this commissioner on.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of the commissioner as I sit here. I can sort of get more informed on it. But to the extent, if this man was, or person, woman, I don't know, or they, was working with, woman, this is me, I'm sexist. It's always the libs. They're always the most sexist. It's the feminist libs. To the extent that she was working knowingly and intentionally to facilitate Mayor Adams's policy of corruption with respect to what Trump was doing with ICE, I think she needs to go. That shows a failing of moral character. And if she's not up the chain, sending messages, being concerned about that to me is a line too far.
But the police commissioner is besides the mayor, the most high profile citywide position, right? In the mayor's office.
The mayor appoints, yeah.
She's, anything to do with Eric Adams. Why would you keep that stink around? It just seems weird to me.
Well, I'm not sure if it extends to her. If the stink extends, I don't say just by virtue of the appointment of the person. Well, no, come on. You would agree with this. So for example,
you would take someone from Trump's administration, you would be like, that person's okay. And
depends on the context. Jerome Powell was appointed by Trump, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you keep Powell?
Well, we did. Biden re-upped him.
Would you?
It's not
Would
part
you
of
think
his-
it was bad? Do you think it would be a bad idea for him to keep Powell? Was it
No,
bad
I
for
don't
Biden
think
to
it's a
keep him?
bad idea.
Okay, so the
Mnuchin
mere
ended up
fact,
being surprisingly good too.
But that's
so the
diff-
mere
that's-
fact that someone
they
is
don't
appointed
work-
by a
first of all,
previous.
I don't think it's a fair comparison because there's independence between the two, whereas the police commissioner works hand in hand with the mayor.
It would be more like keeping Hegseth or something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just assume that she's very popular, and there's a similar situation with Jeffries. Like, I assume he's calculating that there's, that she's well liked in the city, and that it would be politically damaging for him to pursue that.
It's going to be case by case. I'm not going to give a per se rule that any political appointee of a previously corrupt administration should go when that administration leaves. And that's never been my position. And I didn't take that view with respect to Trump's appointees that stayed on after Biden, or if they have a particular purpose that like they should be insulated from that kind of political maneuvering, similar to like the Durham investigation into Hunter Biden. There are many reasons I would say for keeping someone on, especially if whatever cloud doesn't cover that person or it's not like politically relevant to do.
All right, let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. JJ, is she retiring just because it's the time for her pension, or do you think she sees the winds blowing away from MAGA?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of takes on this. I do think that attacking her for the pension thing is probably the weakest. I mean, I think we would all do the same thing if we were in that position. Like, if it's just a few more months, just to cross this magical threshold. It is interesting that it's the day before January 6th, though, so she won't get to sort of partake in those festivities. But no, I mean, like, I think that like her life seems pretty sucky if she was going to stay in politics, in all honesty. Like, I mean, the idea, even if she sort of remained a congresswoman, and like, it would really sort of depend on the Republicans maintaining control of the House for her to have any kind of like ongoing relevance or power at all. But instead, like, the idea that the Democrats could gain the House, she could become some sort of backbencher who then, is on bad terms with Trump, and yet is in a party that serves no purpose beyond defending Trump. I mean, like, what kind of role could she possibly have as a backbencher in a minority party after a devastating loss in Congress? Like, it seems like her whole political brand was based on being the most loyal Trump soldier. Now she's on the outs with Trump. So, like, what use is there for her in elected politics anymore?
But she did that herself, though. I mean, she was the one that was kind of picking these fights. She's been rebuking Trump more and more, especially in the last.
That's because she had the like, her great sin was actually believing the bullshit, right? Like, she was a true believer, and she's sort of now been, because she's, I think, a very simple-minded woman, and she has now been sort of had to confront the reality that there is nothing there, right?
Yeah,
like,
she's the embodiment of the Trump voter who truly believes that everything he says is just. And now that she's in proximity and she's seeing this Epstein stuff kind of fall, below what her expectations of, hey, he's going to reveal the grand scheme and drain the swamp. It's like, wait a minute, maybe I was duped. Like, she truly is not one of those like grifters. She actually bought in to everything, and she sees it's not true anymore. And now she's like, well, I got to question my whole reality, right?
I think it's more than that. I think she obviously has higher ambitions. I mean, she would reportedly wanted to go for the seat in Georgia, the Senate seat. Trump reportedly, discouraged her from doing that. And I think it's also been reported that she's floated the idea of running for president. And that kind of makes sense. Like, when you think about, like, she is, I think, the largest small donor fundraiser in the entire Republican Party. Did you guys know this?
She was, when she was known for being, more MAGA than MAGA, right? Like, when her whole political brand was defined by nothing other than blind loyalty to Trump. But I mean, like, obviously she's not going to be that kind of a force in the party going forward. I mean, as long as the party remains sort of, the private plaything of Donald Trump, like, anybody who attempts to create a sort of political brand of right-wing politics that doesn't include Trump, I don't think there's any reason to believe that, they're a pony to bet on, unless Trump becomes so unpopular.
You don't think that, like, I mean, we'll get into the Epstein files, but like, I think some people like her are betting on this is going to be so bad that MAGA dies, and I want to be the person who got ahead of it and said, actually, MAGA was never good, or I was deceived, which is crazy because she is the Jewish space lasers person. So it's like, oh, I'm the reasonable one who got off before, it got crazy. But you don't think there's any validity to anyone doing that? And not in like the Liz Cheney way, in like the people that are jumping ship right now, like her.
Well, I mean, she's making that calculation, I think, on some level, just because, like, when you watch her resignation video, she goes through this like laundry list of all of her like very right-wing positions. Like she says, oh, I was against the COVID vaccine and I've been fighting against men turning into women, and I hate all wars and no money for Ukraine, and like just going through the whole list of things, right?
I'm still crazy, everyone. Don't worry.
Yeah, but it's like, but I mean, to your point, like she is proving that she has like these very strident right-wing ideological bona fides, which I guess is maybe, like a signal that she can envision a world where that would matter in some universe, like that would be kind of the metric in which somebody would be judged fit to be a Republican presidential candidate, maybe. But I don't know. That's a pretty big gamble. It might just be that she just believes those things and just wanted to remind everybody why she got into politics.
I don't think she's
grifter, and I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Putch.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say I don't think that she's that principled, and to the extent that she is, I don't think that she's a viable force as a national candidate. And if she does, I think that like she's stupid. It's funny. I wanted to now take my turn to shit on the left a little bit. I saw Cenk Uygur like respond to Marjorie Taylor Greene and say something like, hey, let's have a debate about whether you should stay. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's really important that you stay. Like, no, this person sucks. This person was lecturing all of us about divisive rhetoric and the importance of like how horrible it is that we're so divided these days, and that the temperature has been ratcheted up, when she is a primary contributor, or her movement or her type of politics in the causality of that and the further division from reality that the Republican Party is at, and the sort of conflict that the country's in at the moment. So I just don't take her seriously in any respect. It seems like she has other ambitions. Maybe she wants to be on The View. Maybe she wants to do some kind of media thing. But I don't think she likes the job. It doesn't seem like she enjoys being a congressperson. She's another person like Fetterman, who doesn't seem to like want to do this thing that they went for. And I think it's shameful that she went and ran for another term, and she's not finishing it out. Putting aside the whole issue of the pension thing, I agree. Like, okay, give her a break. She wants to get her pension. She pretty much did the whole time. But I think more bad or immoral is signing up for a 2-year term and then not finishing it and putting your party through a special election for no reason.
I mean, I guess you could say, though, that she was elected on the pretense that she was going to be a loyal foot soldier for Trump. And now, having ruined that relationship with him, she can no longer fulfill her mandate.
I was going to say
concerning. Yeah.
There's validity, I would say, to the, she's not fully on board with Trump having the sauce anymore. I don't know if you guys can see this, but he called, we talked about this. He called her Marjorie Trader Brown. And you say, what does that mean? And he had to explain this. He had to say, oh, well, grass, when it dies, it turns from green to brown. I think this is, like a recession indicator for, I'm very bearish on Trump charisma. His nicknames aren't good anymore.
I think it's a banger.
Have really good
this
ones.
Is Cope.
Trader Brown.
This is a banger.
The best.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not as good as Ron DeSanctimonious.
Explain. Like,
no, it's just so it's like panicking. He has just a way with the English language that I think Marjorie Taylor Brown is an all-timer. I really do think it's a good nickname, and I think it's up there with Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe could run circles around Marjorie Trader Brown. That's awful.
Do you guys agree with me though? Like, I feel like this is definitely an indicator of what I was talking about before. Like the fact that she is, bowing out at this point, she wouldn't be doing that if Trump's brand was still strong. I don't think she would have been rebuking him in the first place if his brand was still strong. And I think every Republican politician, I guarantee you, every single Republican in Congress right now, they're all asking themselves the same thing. That is like, when do I flee? Now, like, I'm not going to say that all of them are going to do it really aggressively, but at some point, when his numbers get low enough, like their own kind of motivations of self-interest are going to override whatever loyalty they had towards Trump. Because if he gets down to like 35, 34, 33, 32 in the approval ratings, then they have their own futures to consider. And I think we are headed to that point. I don't know what his basement is, but I think it's below 35 and above 30. I think it's somewhere in the low 30s.
I was actually going to ask, maybe you guys know this because I don't. Mike Johnson, in the past, has he been someone who was like more Cash Patelli, Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, oh, I'm fully on board with what Trump is doing, but now when he's confronted with these things, it's not, I unequivocally support the president's decision. It's, I don't know, I haven't seen that. Oh, I haven't heard about that. Oh, I'm not sure. And he's kind of like gearing up for, well, I didn't agree with that back then. I just didn't know what to think of it at the time. Versus in the past where he's just, absolutely on his knees for whatever Trump wants. Is that?
I think he's always been like, I don't think that's him putting distance between himself and Trump. I think that's just him trying to avoid Trump's scandals, so like, instead of taking a position, he'll just say, I haven't seen it. I don't think that shows like tepid support, but he's always been pretty sycophantic towards Trump.
Yeah, he was like a true believer on January 6th and all that.
I thought the Marjorie Taylor Greene story was bigger than the Mamdani one. I think it's a political earthquake, man. Like, she is the MAGA movement. That's her whole purpose. And I was sure that she would make up with Trump in a couple of weeks and get back in his good graces because she was still praising him and the administration. But that 10-minute video she put out basically said that Congress has been neutered. We're not doing anything. And it just revealed how Trump has taken the legislative branch and completely ruined it. And she doesn't want anything to do with it. And I think it's a sure sign of the midterms are going to be won by the Democrats, because we looked at these high profile resignations mostly after the holidays to see who's going to win. And this is about as big as it gets. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a parade of these guys marching out, because one, they're going to lose and they don't want to be in the minority. You can't get anything done in the minority. And two, their power is gone. So I think it shows just how damaging Trump has been on the Republican Party and on Congress as well. They're fucked.
It's an idea.
Guy, I have to ask. I mean, I agree. In any other circumstances would be there's no coming back from this. But watching Elon call Trump a pedophile publicly and then still be able to shake hands and make up and try to get back in the good graces, like, is there nothing that like you can't come back from with this guy? Like, I don't know. I think she could still come back.
I think she could.
No, but
I'm surprised she didn't quickly.
No, but I think her doing this is like, I think she can see where the winds are blowing. Like, I think they can all see what's happening right now. I think like the next year is going to be really crazy for Republican Party politics, because they are cruising towards just a complete bloodbath in the midterms. Like, it's not going to be pretty if it stays the same now. I mean, I don't know. They're like, maybe in an alternative universe, Trump could turn things around, but do you guys really see that happening? Like, I just feel like he's getting more and more diminished, and he's getting more and more.
He's out of time. I think he's out of time because everyone's thinking about the 2026 midterms. I mean, it's over. His chance for big ticket legislation, the margin has never been more narrow in the House, and everyone's worried about what's coming down for the election. I think there's a true identity crisis happening in the Republican Party. It's one of the reasons I'm so nervous about Fuentes and the Groypers. And I'm actually curious JJ's take as someone who comes from a more conservative bent on his feeling about this identity crisis. But from my perspective, it looks like every remnant of the old Republican Party, in terms of its connection to the base, has been hollowed out. Ideologically, there's no resemblance to what we were seeing in the neocon era. And they've either explicitly rejected the conceptual and political framing of that era with all deference to Trump. And so the only, I think, coherent vision that's coming from Republican circles that is just not whatever Trump says, and the energy seems to be from the Groypers. And I'm curious what the Republicans who are anti-Groyper are going to provide to their base to counter this growth. I mean, like, it's crazy. If you look at all the replies, and I'm sure a lot of that's botted, and a lot of Twitter stuff, like the Groypers are JQing everything. They're flooding comments. They're liking everything. It really does seem that a significant percentage of the Republican online ideological core is swayed by the Fuentes, or at least willing to pay lip service to it, such that J.D. Vance won't condemn Fuentes. Trump is walking on eggshells around Fuentes. And so something has been captured here, and it doesn't seem like there's a palatable vision being provided by the opposition, by the Ted Cruzes of the world, and those who would wish it not to descend into Groyper nihilism. But I'm curious, JJ, what's your take?
Nikki Haley's son is talking like a Groyper. It's insane. Yeah, sorry, JJ, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think, though, that, it's possible to be a little too apocalyptic about this kind of thing, in the sense that, like, I definitely agree, like the groyperification of sort of American right-wing culture is deeply disturbing. The degree to which sort of young staffers on the Hill and in sort of right-wing organizations, as we saw with the big dust-up at the Heritage Foundation, the degree to which these sort of like the foot soldiers of sort of the Republican Party establishment is now sort of being dominated by little neo-Nazis. It's terrifying. But what I would sort of say is that it does not logically follow then that this is the group that will someday be ruling the Republican Party, and that if the Republican Party is sort of voted in, that, you know, that this will be the sort of face of it, right? It's very possible that the party is in a moment of crisis as Trump is declining, and that they're in fact making a profound miscalculation of going all in on something even more repulsive. Right? Yeah. Like JD Vance has made a strategic calculation that the Groypers are the wave of the future. And, you know, so is Heritage, and, you know, so is Tucker Carlson and all these other sort of characters. But that might just be like bad politics, right? Like the American people, I don't think have a great appetite for like open white supremacy, neo-Nazism, you know, fascist apologia. I think that, like, when you think of the famous Tim Walz quote, like, you know, they're just damn weird, right? Like, that is the stuff that I think really gets the antenna up. And so I think that that is a very strong possibility, is that the party, like, sans Trump, just gets more deranged and repulsive and bizarre, and that becomes very off-putting. Whereas I think that Trump and Trump's charisma and Trump's sort of figurehead status kind of was like, you know, the eclipse that sort of blocked out all of this darkness behind him. Sure. And I think that when he goes away and we actually see what's, like, you know, under the rock, right, I think that could be very disastrous for the party.
I think you're right. I think there's a hard cap on how far the Groypers can go. Like, I don't think they'll ever fully take over the party, but they could be big enough to cause like real disruption within Republican Party politics.
Yeah,
Hush, like, look where we are right now. Like, Trump won't condemn Fuentes. Trump said Fuentes' name. They know what's going on. They know that one of the biggest conversations was happening in conservative circles was about Tucker Carlson, the biggest conservative influencer in national politics. Everyone knows it. I feel like Trump, everyone knows it, everyone talks about it. But like, that happened. JD Vance, Trump, the highest elected Republicans know about it, and they have taken the decision not to condemn. That to me signals something like they have grown tremendously.
It's true. There's a lot of momentum there, but it's still kind of in this like bubble in the internet specifically. And second, when it does get exposed, when you bring these people out in the light, people are like, wait a minute, I actually don't like Hitler. I'm not a big fan. And unfortunately, they're never going to be able to distance themselves from that. And that's the reason why Tucker, and I think I saw a clip of Tim Pool doing this, they have to downplay the reality of who these people are, because the instant that you are exposed to who they really are, everyone's like, wait, I don't like these people. Like, Tucker Carlson's whole thing was not, hey, Nick, come on and proselytize about how great being a neo-Nazi is. It's how can I obfuscate your real opinions to make you look a little less bad, and then everyone else can attack you and be like, oh, that's not true, right? Those are just clips out of context, right? Like, they have to distance and push away what they really are, because that's not going to work. It's not going to work if those people get into power, unless the whole time they're somehow crypto hiding it. That's why, like JJ was talking about, these staffers aren't going out and saying, oh, yeah, well, I mean, they are, if we saw the leaked text messages. But as soon as you see like that DeSantis guy staffer posting like a black sun in their campaign video, it's like, oh, and then he gets fired immediately, because they know that's not going to play well with 90% of people.
Guy, do you think the Groypers will ever successfully take over the Republican Party?
Not until they start talking about affordability are they going to win jack shit, because as racist as people are, they care more about paying less at the grocery store. So until those idiots figure out that affordability is what matters to people, they're not going to get any traction. But I'm looking at Ben Shapiro, watching his noble battle versus them. I think he's losing. I think he needs to step his shit up. So Ben Shapiro, if you're listening,
but he's a piece of shit.
Fucking Shapiro, game up, moron. You're having an existential threat here.
Shapiro is like, these people deserve each other. Shapiro is talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene falling out with Trump as though the falling out relates to Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to co-opt the movement, as opposed to the Epstein files vote, where everyone understands the reason why Trump was like hauling Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to be berated by his attorney general and in a remarkable move to whip votes on a piece of legislation is because of the Epstein files vote. Shapiro is a decrepit liar who's doing everything that
Sure.
he's accusing Marjorie Taylor
Yes.
Greene of, namely trying to co-opt the
He's
movement. And yeah, go for it.
I don't disagree with you. I think Ben Shapiro sucks and he's a loser, but he's the loser who can destroy Nick Fuentes, not you and I. So he needs to step his game up and look at it as an existential threat and stop dicking around and start attacking him and destroy him. So
I don't
Ben
think Shapiro can
hold
win
your
that
head out
fight.
of your ass.
Ben is not charismatic or funny enough or at all to defeat
He's
a
huge.
Groyper. No, yeah, he doesn't get the
He
same
can
numbers
destroy
that
Nick
did.
Fuentes. Nobody else can destroy Nick Fuentes but Ben Shapiro, and he needs to step it up.
I think that we Jews can pick a stronger Jew to destroy Nick Fuentes. I think Ben Shapiro is the weakest of us of all, and he fostered this movement for years. He was the Islamophobic, promoting alt-right crap. This is why the Christchurch shooter cited him in his manifesto, and then you get to this Groyper movement, he's like, "Oh my God, what happened? Where did this come from?" It's like you did this. You're part of this.
So this is obviously a significant fracture in the Republican Party that's emerging right now, especially after Charlie Kirk. I mean, after Kirk died, Fuentes played it very savvy. He positioned himself right away to capitalize on their grief and anger and radicalize. And it looks like he was successful at radicalizing thousands of people towards his side. Does that mean that this moment is the best time for an attempted left-wing Tea Party or the worst time? Because you have a couple options here, right? If the Democratic Party stays cohesive and doesn't have a civil war, we could really benefit enormously electorally in the next couple of election cycles. However, if there's a lot of
civil war,
what's that?
They already lost their civil war because Mamdani said
no,
they're with Jeffries.
They're gearing up again. I'm telling you, they really want this to be a left-wing Tea Party movement right now. But is it the best time or is it the worst time? While they're fractured, do we do our own little war? What's the strategy here?
We need to replace leadership, and it's not ideological. It's age and whether or not they're competent. I don't trust Schumer. Schumer's approval ratings are low. But I think the Democrats should be a diverse party. I don't think that it should all be unified under a great democratic socialist leader. I don't call myself a democratic socialist. I'm a capitalist. But at the end of the day, I don't think the leadership is doing a good job. And I think that they're blowing it to some extent. I think that Democrats will win despite these problems, but we need to get younger and we need to get meaner.
I'm not talking about leadership. I mean, they're not looking to the people that I'm talking about are not looking to replace, just the older members of Congress. They specifically want to replace anyone, again, who has taken any dime from AIPAC. That's what this is about. That's what I'm seeing across all the various channels that I pay attention to. JJ, you look like you were about to jump in there.
Yeah, well, are you funded by AIPAC, JJ?
No, but I am a foreigner, so you should be suspicious anyway. But no, I mean, it seems to me that the Democrats have been in a kind of difficult position sort of historically, in the sense that the cry of fascism, I think the Republicans would say, oh, it's been overused. You call everybody a fascist. You call everybody a Nazi. We're not going to listen to that anymore. And I do think that, like our little conversation with Mamdani illustrated, that is a term that has maybe lost a bit of salience in some respects. But then when you do get more and more proof that the fascism accusation is becoming very, very real in the most literal sense, when you literally have out and out neo-Nazis, people saying I like Hitler in sort of young Republican, text groups, even elected representatives in state legislatures and things, then you do start to wonder, will that have a renewed motivating effect on sort of people on the left side of the culture more energized to get involved in politics? And will that sort of will the stakes of the political moment seem much more sort of salient than they have previously? People have gotten used to Trump. Oh, he's got one foot in the grave, whatever, who cares? But then if you got this sense that waiting in the wings are actual horrible, neo-Nazi white supremacist, types, Groypers and whatnot, is that going to have a kind of mobilizing influence on the left in a way that, MAGA didn't? And I think that will be sort of interesting to see, because I do think there have been, during the Trump era, there have been people on the left, particularly on the far left, who have been willing to kind of sort of frame Trump as well, he's not really a fascist, and this is just typical lib hysterics from the wine mom set, right? But then when you have people whose sort of fascism is just so blunt and so undeniable, is that the moment in which you actually do start to see more significant? No.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I kind of agree with JJ in the sense of I think Trump's being fascist is legitimizing the resist wine mom libs of
agree.
looks like you've been right this whole time. this is not going to invigorate the left to take over the party. It's it turns out the people that were saying this was going to happen the whole time are legit. They do have their mind in the right place, and they've been doing the right thing. Therefore, we should support them more. I think that movement's going to grow. I think the resist movement is the bigger and stronger voice here.
Time after time, Democratic voters have shown that they're willing to be pragmatic and to vote for who they think is most likely to win in primaries. I don't think that they've shown this kind of like purity testing. Well, that election hasn't happened yet, Hutch, and we don't know what they're going to say there, and we don't know actually. And to be clear, Hutch, we don't know who is the most likely to win in that context. I mean, we don't have evidence. I've seen like polls that have said that Plattner is ahead on the ballot against.
He is. But I'm saying he's going to crash. That guy, if they elevate him and make him the candidate, he is going to crash and burn against Susan Collins.
That's possible. I don't support Plattner, but I'm just saying, in the main run of cases and over the long term, Democratic voters have not shown this kind of like ideological purity testing. Consistently, what they want are strong candidates who they think are likely to win and to defeat Republicans in this moment. And you saw massive wins for centrist Democrats in Virginia, New Jersey, across the country. You'll see the same in 2026, in my opinion. And so I don't think that this moment, though I think we do need to replace old, decrepit leaders who are out of touch and who don't know how to fucking play the game. I don't think it should be ideological. I think it should be based on, vigorousness and youth and also their ability to run the country and get wins.
Why do you have that smoke for Chuck Schumer but not Jeffries? Is it just age?
No, he does.
I do have. Wait, I have smoke for Jeffries as well, but Schumer, in particular, I think on some of these votes, for example, letting his caucus, I think on the Lake and Riley Act vote without any pushback, the two CRs, I think those votes have been bad votes, and I still think
I think what you're wanting from a leader is just not a reality. Quite frankly, like I don't think you're ever going to have a Senate leader that's going to fully prevent Democrats from taking votes like that. When has that ever happened in history? When has there ever been a Senate leader that like perfectly whipped his caucus in line 100% of the time? Like these senators in those states, they are, these are way more moderate electorates.
He did not try on the recent CR vote. He didn't try. You had the Democratic whip.
Wait, how do you know though? How do you know that would have been behind the scenes? Like they wouldn't have had that fight in public.
They're all blabbing about what happened behind the scenes, and they said the defectors all said Schumer did not try to weigh in on which way to go. So yes, we have. Unless you're saying you don't believe that, Hutch.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a whole different thing. But like,
okay, that's what I'm relying on. He didn't try to whip him, and his
but what if
public
he felt
statement
like,
wasn't forceful at all?
What if he felt like, the framework that he didn't let them, or he let them do this or let them do that. It's like the parties are not monoliths. Like you can't have this perfect track record where you just get 100% of the whip every single time. Did you hear when I said? What if his calculation? Wait, I know. Let me address that. I just want to make sure it's heard.
I'm not sure I heard it.
Let me address that. What if his calculation was that there was no point in picking that fight because he wasn't going to be able to dissuade them? So he just didn't.
I just want to make sure my question is heard. Did you hear me when I said, I asked, did he even try to whip them?
What did I just say?
I just want to make sure you heard that.
I heard, and I'm saying, what if his internal calculation was he wasn't going to win that fight, so he just didn't pick that fight?
I mean, that is possible. That is possible. But I'm just saying that's logically possible. There's no inherent contradiction in it. But what your invitation to absurdity is, you will never criticize Schumer for anything because you can come up with some plausible justification he might have had. Is that your position, Hutch? Because I haven't heard one criticism of Schumer.
Bro, I've been telling you. How long have I been saying for weeks now that Schumer needs to resign? Like if he resigned,
your reasoning is he needs to resign. He needs to resign because all these crazies like Pisco. That's your rationale. Is basically he lost the confidence of the crazies who aren't giving him his due benefit of the doubt. No, but I just think that there's an importance for the Democratic Party to actually have a leader who is willing to take more stands within his own party and impose some, like Pelosi did. Like we're all like glazing Pelosi after she leaves office. And what are we all like? One of the main things that we're all pointing to, she kept her caucus in line. When the time came for a vote, she was there. Why can't we apply that principle to Schumer? Why is that so like, why do we have to give special rules for Schumer? That's what I don't understand is the Schumer exceptionalism, where if we can come up with a plausible rationale he might have had, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and no criticism is due because I can't definitively prove what's in his head.
All right, before anyone responds, I'm going to give 60 seconds on the fight with Pisco timer because we have a guest here that we need to fight with.
Sure.
I just want to say he's only been the leader since 2017, Pisco. Okay, let him cook, man. Schumer needs a little more time to become the leader that he can be, bro. Just wait till Janet Mills gets in there, dude.
Yeah, wait, how old is she now? She's Democrats have a big age problem. I think the Democrats have a big age problem.
Janet Mills stan, man. Watch, she's gonna prove you wrong.
I hope so. Hey, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope, and I happen to think that the identity crisis, for all it's worth, is way worse on the Republican side because I don't actually see another like sort of coherent message besides the Groy person. So I'd much rather be the Democrats, and I agree also with what you guys are saying is that if they step into the Groyperism, I do think that will be more negative consequentially in terms of their election than Trumpism. Trump is able to disguise a lot of his, like JJ said, with his magnanimous personality, his humor, and I don't think that will be true of the Groypers, but I don't put it past the American people if they're really pissed off about prices to vote for like a Groyper adjacent person. I just don't have that confidence anymore.
Okay,
well I mean, we have. Sorry,
go ahead. I was going to introduce last topic, but last thought for you, JJ.
Oh no, I was just going to say that like we do have, it's worth remembering. I know it's very easy to get very dark and nihilistic in sort of the Trump era, but like there is a lot of evidence to suggest that when Trump does go too close to this particular son in the past, he has gotten burned, right? Like Charlottesville was terrible for Trump, right? Like that was his most open flirtation with white supremacism as such, and that was terrible. That's still, I think, one of his lowest polling points ever. Right, to this day. So like it is important that we realize that the American people are still good, decent folk at the end of the day, and people vote for Trump because they don't perceive him as a fascist, they don't perceive him as a neo-Nazi, right? So, and maybe they never will perceive him as anything beyond what he is, but these other characters, Vance and his whole sort of clown car of hangers-on, like these are new characters for a lot of people. And what I was just trying to get at before was like, Hutch, when you were asking about a sort of like left-wing Tea Party, I think it's less that we think of, sort of progressive people challenging establishment Democrats and more just like a fear of sort of the post-Trump era or perhaps sort of like a decaying Trump era. I think it could just be a mobilizing factor in just getting all sorts of people more mobilized to run for office, to get into politics, to support Democrats in opposition to something that does feel new and terrifying.
And that's a logical continuation of his first term. That is exactly what happened during his first term. He inspired a lot of newcomers to run for office for the first time, energized the Democratic voter base, and it stands to reason that the opposition force this time would be more motivated because he's just been a lot more awful, quite frankly. Like he's been just really, really unique, like surprisingly awful. Like I knew he was going to be bad, but the first year just well exceeded my expectations. And so, results like the election night a few weeks ago really shouldn't shock anybody. I got $5 from Daz Vidania, who said that it's way easier for House leader to keep their caucus in line because the House is up every 2 years. Thus, for those members, they need the leader's support more for elections. I just wanted to read that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that the particularities of the constituency so far as the House are concerned are also at play in the Senate. And so I'm not really sure what the basis is to say that, other than like, I guess they're more responsive to the base every 2 years. So maybe there's more pressure that a leader can inflict on that, but the level of I think discord within the Democratic votes in the Senate in the Trump term too has really been disappointing for me. So even if I would grant that there's some basis to think that the House leader has more power, the point I was making was just that we praise Pelosi for her ability to do that, but it seems that every turn, even when there's massive divisions in the Senate, we're coming up with excuses for Schumer.
What do you think of the idea of like, just real quick, what do you think of the idea of like, let's say there's Democratic senator, maybe they're serving in a light red state, like Gallego. Did he vote for the Lake and Riley Act? I think he did.
He sure
right?
did.
Yeah. What do you say to someone who would point out that maybe most of his constituents wanted him to take that vote, even the Democrats?
Yeah. So I think that you are elected to be a representative, and I think that you need to test people's like bravery in the moment. And sometimes you need to do what's in the best interest of the country, even if your constituencies are nominally in favor of more like immigration enforcement. And the proof is in the pudding. After a while, now people have horrible views about what's going on in immigration. Trump's approval in immigration is -8 or 9 or something. And so if he would have just done the right thing in that moment, then I think it would have been better. And they needed the Democratic support to pass the Laken Riley Act, which is essentially giving more discretion to ICE in this moment of where they're like abusing people and sending people to torture prisons to detain people. And so, yeah, no, there are some votes in which I would be like, okay, I understand if it's just like a signaling vote, it doesn't matter. But this was relevant vote where they needed Democratic support to get over the filibuster on a vote where I think it's critical. And so, no, I would say that Ruben Gallego did something bad.
But what if voting against the Laken Riley Act would have possibly imperiled his reelection or something?
This is everything with you. I just want to say this is every single conversation. I'll do the last point.
Stop. No more Hutch Pisco fighting.
No, I'll just say the last. Wait, I just want to say the last point. If you turn every single conversation into a trolley problem about if it's the case that this is the one-off thing that will determine the election, I will grant it to you. If it's the case that this vote necessitated him to win or lose, okay, I would grant it to you. But don't turn every conversation into the Manchin problem.
Okay, so JJ,
yes.
Last topic today was the Epstein files release, and I think you're great for having on this topic because you are notoriously a conspiracy skeptic. I think you texted me yesterday. Epstein did nothing wrong, or something like that.
I didn't say that.
And, yeah. But in reality, you are someone who's like, yeah, we know almost everything there is already to know about the Epstein case. The Epstein files will not be some groundbreaking, earth-shattering revelation. What are your thoughts on this whole vote? That like Trump finally, kind of flipped and stopped trying to prevent it. Now he's, saying they should release them. Are they going to redact his name out of it? Give us your spiel.
My sense is that this is going to be a sort of conspiracy theory that is going to be with us for the rest of our lives. Like this is just never, ever, ever going to be resolved to anybody's satisfaction. And I think in some ways the legislation, enables that. Because, the legislation does, as I'm sure we all know, has a lot of loopholes, has a lot of exceptions. And even though, I think that those loopholes and exceptions can be a little overstated because the legislation also says that if the government is going to evoke, any national security pretenses or whatever else, they have to explicitly acknowledge that. And then there's sort of other checks and balances where they have to update Congress on the regs to, keep them informed about blah, 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 blah. But anyway, what this means, though, is that this is just going to drag out forever because there will forever be a sense that the government hasn't completely disclosed everything, that there's always somewhere in the deepest regions of the deep state, somewhere there's like a vault, and that's where the real Epstein files are, right? And so it's just going to keep going on. It's like aliens or, whatever else.
JFK.
Yeah, exactly. Like JFK, there's the truth. And it doesn't matter how many radical populists we keep electing, it's just never being disclosed because some powerful figure doesn't want the full story to be known. So, at some point, it's like you can either make peace with the fact that this is just a nonsense conspiracy theory, or you can, I think, do what the Democrats are trying to do and try to at least weaponize it and kind of play with fire in that sort of way and hope that this madness and, the American people's sort of propensity towards a good conspiracy theory can maybe be used to bring Trump down.
Someone needs to make the "nothing ever happens" Wojak with your face, JJ. You're all in on nothing ever happens. But if it's so innocuous, if it is such this is never gonna satisfy anyone, it's really not nearly as big of a deal. Why are they fighting tooth and nail to stop its release? Why not just say, well, look, it's a nothing burger. Look, it's just a bunch of bullshit.
Because I think Trump has said stupid lies that are going to be proven to be such, right? And it's not that necessarily Trump was engaged in all these sex crimes. It's just that Trump has said repeatedly that he barely knew Epstein and, that he kicked him out for being a creep because he had no previous inclination that he was a creep and all this kind of stuff. And I think that the files will probably at worst just reveal that Trump knew about sort of Epstein's predilections and his grotesque sort of sexual appetites, and that he was just a good buddy of Epstein and was hanging out with him constantly. And I think that is unto itself very embarrassing and very humiliating, particularly given Trump's kind of elaborate, sort of theology that he is this sort of QAnon hero of the children and all the rest of that. So I think that's it. I think that Trump has just dug himself into a hole of pride that, rather than just being honest and just saying at some pivotal moment in the past, look, I knew Epstein, we were good friends. I, eventually turned against him. But instead, he's he's hanging himself by his own petard. So
Well, you don't think like when the email comes out and it's like Trump blew Bubba, Putin has the photo of it. You think that's all just what is that to you? Is it all just
That would be an
like-
example, but that would potentially be an example of embarrassing, like homosexual conduct by Trump that would not be a sex crime or fit under the category. What was the term you used, JJ? Repulsive sexual predilection or whatever that was. So I mean, unless you guys think that of gay people, maybe a lot of Republicans do, and maybe that's why he doesn't want to have that out there.
yeah. So I
think
feel what's wrong with an innocuous blowjob to the president of the United States?
Yeah, no, from it reminds me of the Sopranos, pitching, not catching. No, or catching, not pitching. There's one point that I thought JJ made was really good. It's about the law. The law, I think, is actually written poorly. A lot of it's unclear. So, for example, the category of documents that are required to be disclosed at the start are unclassified documents. But then there's a category exception that provides for withholding for national defense or international stuff that is itself classified. But that would presuppose an existing obligation, which only extends as far as unclassified. And so it's unclear that category. And even JJ made reference to, giving a report on the Federal Register of different categories of things that you withheld, but it's not clear how detailed that has to be. And it only applies to some subsets, like the national security ones, but not the ones related to ongoing investigations. So the law to me is like a mess and plenty of loopholes that he could validly take hold of under the law. And then additionally, there's a question about whether the law itself is even constitutional under the Supreme Court's framework of the unitary executive theory. If you can't criminalize conduct by a former president in his sort of core official duties, how can you, in the course of an investigation ordered by the president, demand productions and these token sham investigations into like Democrats' connections with Epstein? That at least is a facially valid exercise of executive authority. It just seems like any kind of forcing of the documents is going to run into a lot of problems, including whether the law even allows for suing the Department of Justice to get those documents. So I do think this is a little bit of a stunt. And I do think, and I agree with JJ, that it's never going to resolve anything, given the number of loopholes, a number of problems enforcing the complete set of documents.
Sorry, I just thought this was worth showing. Everyone's saying this makes Trump the first by president, but no, if it's true, Bill Clinton's the first by president. So, but go ahead, guy.
Absolutely filled with pitfalls that Trump will step into, and I think the Democrats are hoping for that. I mean, I'm with JJ. This is never going away. But if trust for the DOJ can be restored in a future administration, then I think the lunatics who are constantly chiming for the Epstein files will get down to the level of like the JFK people or whatever. And so it can be like that flame can get smaller at the very least. But I think was it JJ said that the Democrats have weaponized this conspiracy theory. I think that's beautifully done by Ro Khanna and the Democrats, and they should get their flowers for doing it, because boy, I never thought Epstein would undermine the Trump administration, but this might be what finally takes him down, just because it's the cover up. He's going to release something and it's going to piss off a whole bunch of people. And then, there's going to be more drama, and he's never going to escape this cloud.
It's one of the most beautiful examples of karma that the universe has ever produced, that someone like Donald Trump, who, threw breadcrumbs and red meat at the crazy conspiracy theorists for his entire time in politics. But I think he just made a grave miscalculation when it came to Epstein, because it was too big for even him. Like, his superpower is he's able to, manipulate the narrative and sort of set the news cycle and that sort of thing. And this is bigger than him. And like, Americans have been pretty conspiratorial for a really long time. And we talk about JFK and the landing on the moon and 9/11, but that's really ramped up, I think, in the last like 15 years. I think it's gotten significantly more conspiratorial. And, like the Epstein stuff was kind of like the what do you call it? The zenith, like the absolute height of conspiracy theory in the United States. It's like, it's a story that has really captured the imagination and attention of tens of millions of people from, every political stripe. And the fact that he thought that he could just like, bullshit his way through this. Like, when journalists would ask him, what do you think? And he'd say, oh, it's all Democratic hoax. I mean, that was just like pure hubris, that he thought that he could just like, will it away. And the other thing too, that is just hysterical about this whole thing, is that this is entirely self-inflicted. Like, he did not have to run on this. You know, like Pam Bondi did not need to fucking do a Epstein 1.0 or phase 1 thing. Like she brought it entirely, like it wasn't even him either. Like he wasn't enthusiastically running on releasing the Epstein files, but he staffed his cabinet with these fucking idiot, super online people. And they decided that they were going to, you know, try to raise their own national profile by leveraging the Epstein stuff. And it totally backfired.
And they hate each other too. Did you
Yeah.
hear Patel is like mad at Bondi, and they both hate each other. And so yeah, there's no internal unity on this issue.
Yeah.
One of the things I think is best of this whole thing from a political perspective for Democrats is it's hard to disentangle the failures on the Epstein files to be just isolated to Pam Bondi, because of course Bondi's doing everything that Trump says to do. And so to the extent that Pam Bondi is responsible for any kind of fuck up, Trump is directly implicated because he appointed her and hasn't fired her, and she's willing to do anything he wants. So it's really nice to see these crazies have to contend with the reality of holding office and do a bunch of corrupt stuff in the meantime. Like, I don't know, doing the private. Did you hear what Patel is like now accused of using improperly, like the SWAT team to protect his girlfriend and stuff? They're all worried about personal advancements and perks of the job, and that is, I think, helping the narrative that these people are out of touch protecting child rapists.
Yeah, and to your point of like he didn't run on this, Hutch. It's like everyone remembers the clip. It's like, hey, would you declassify the JFK files?
Like,
of course I would. Would you declassify the Epstein files? Well, maybe that one not so much, because as you know, like it was like the most obvious thing. Like I don't know how his supporters couldn't look at that and say, wait a minute, this might mean something bad for him. But yeah, like this, you are the QAnon president. You had a whole bunch of people who could dig through 10,000 Podesta emails and say that pizza meant little children. And now your emails are coming out and it's like, you did weird stuff with a pedophile. And it's like, oh, well, this could mean anything, you know, like it's
a true like no-win situation for him. Because if they release a lot of unredacted stuff and his name's all over it, that's bad. And if they release a bunch of stuff and it's hella redacted, that, you know, that
no
they're
one's
not
going to believe. Yeah.
no,
Massey said if it is that redacted, he will read the unredacted names on the House floor. Like he's still, you know, like I'm going to make sure this gets out. He's fully on board on that. I don't know if Ro Khanna's on the bipartisan.
But he might not get it though, right? They might withhold it from Congress. But if there's ambiguity about about like whether they have to give the unclassified versions to Congress itself, that's unclear in the law, and who would have standing to sue. I'm not sure that Massey will get it.
Well, but Massey said they know the names and they'll just read them out on the floor.
Massey, I think, doesn't know shit. If I'm being
honest, they said the victims. They know. We know who some of the people are, and we will read their names.
So, and some of the perpetrators, he said too. I mean, you have to be careful about the list here. I think there's a lot of shifty shit happening with the people who are promoting this story. I don't think it's all just this benevolent people who want transparency. I think a lot of people are like that, but I don't think that. And Michael Tracy, I don't agree with him on everything he does on the Epstein files, but as a reporter, he's been asking some like really tough questions of these people, and they don't seem to have a clue on the substantive allegations and what's going on here. JJ, you're laughing. I don't know if you saw any of those
conversation with Michael Tracy.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Michael Tracy is great, I think, at least on this particular issue. And I agree, like he does go too far. I think in some ways he's a little bit too much of a Epstein the man apologist.
He was just 17.
He's also skeptical. Additionally, he's also skeptical that like these laws should even apply. Like the notion that you could traffic like a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old or something like that. But go ahead.
But independent of that, and I have my problems with some of his stuff, but he's really, I think, done the Lord's work in terms of just really deconstructing the lack of there in terms of this narrative that people casually throw around, that like we've sort of seen proof that our elites are engaged in these like pedophilic like sex cult things, right? Which there's like very little evidence of, but this is a thing that people just casually say, oh, we've seen like, Bill Clinton, and we've seen, Bill Gates, and we've seen this and this and this. And like Michael Tracy has shown that like there is very little substance behind any of the allegations of these other powerful men, including Trump. And that this is just a kind of like folk story that has been repeated endlessly because people are somehow, and I think this is quite grotesque in a way, people are not satisfied with the evil of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell themselves. That somehow there has to be something big and more cinematic and more
intelligence agencies or other powerful third parties. And I would not feel comfortable saying that I know Trump engaged in some sexual crime. And I think if you're saying that, you You don't have the evidence for it yet. Now, his reaction, I think, is suspicious as fuck and should be looked into and all that stuff. But there are people. The problem is, I think the notion, and JJ, you got some of this in your answer, why people won't be satisfied, because even the term the Epstein files, I think in their mind presupposes guilt and presupposes like a confirmation of what happened. So you haven't released the Epstein files if you haven't released the thing that condemns the people we want to condemn. Those aren't the Epstein files. The Epstein files, in other words, are defined by their inculpatory nature to certain groups. And so to the extent that you haven't released those files as defined therein, then you are hiding something. And so that's, I think that there's a problem here. There's an expectation that ultimately can't be fulfilled.
Well, I lost this bet last time, JJ. We bet about whether or not Elon Musk's Trump kerfuffle would last longer until VidCon, and it didn't. But I'm all in on Trump's in the Epstein files. You guys are being too
with illegal stuff, skeptical. Or with illegal stuff, or embarrassing
illegal stuff. Trump diddled a kid. I'm going to say.
Oh, sorry.
Allegedly in the Epstein files.
Okay. Here's an interesting theoretical what if, as long as we're living in La La Land.
We love that here.
Okay, here. Imagine this scenario. Okay, imagine the Epstein files do come out and they do reveal that Trump diddled the kid. Do you think that would then become a big scandal for the Democrats in some ways? Because then it would be sort of like the Biden administration was sitting on this.
No,
you don't think so?
No,
like, it would be a Garland. Everyone would shit on me. I'd be the last Merrick Garland defender in the room. Say, guys, put your pitchforks down.
Couldn't read. It's fine. He didn't know.
It's the premise. The premise, I think, only exists because Donald Trump totally corrupted the presidency and their relationship with DOJ, because it's obviously insanely corrupt and very troubling, the prospect of a president weaponizing criminal investigations and documents in that investigation for political hit job. People ask, why didn't Biden release this information? I don't think the thought even entered his mind for a second to go into criminal files and then selectively release them to hurt his political opponents.
I totally agree, Hutch. No, I totally agree with that. And people like Piers Morgan do it all the time. They're like, Biden indicted Trump and convicted him for the New York thing. It's just the assumption that when Democrats hold office, they're going to be as corrupt as Trump is with the DOJ, where Trump is literally ordering investigations into his rivals and arrests on Truth Social to his DOJ, and they're complying publicly with tweets in response. That is a level of malevolence and corruption in the DOJ we have never seen before. And so, I don't think that would
Nixon,
be shared by all the Democrats. But even look at what Nixon did, right? Nixon
resigned,
Well, first of all, that was the catalyst for a downfall. It was the biggest political story that other scandals are compared to, among other things. But this is a public, you shall indict. At a bare minimum, what Nixon was doing was trying to protect himself and stop indictments. I think that's also a problem.
He was also privately pressuring DOJ
to
investigate, people he thought were radical, groups that he thought were radical, his political opponents. But he wasn't doing that publicly.
It's a decent point.
Well, there's no world in which any files are released that implicate Trump while he's president. I mean, let's be honest. There's no shot the DOJ release anything unless they did it by accident. And anyways, the argument you could use, why didn't Biden do anything? I hear it all the time, is as far as we know, there was an active investigation until July 7th when the DOJ under Trump said it's case closed, boss. Nothing to see here. So I could just argue that Biden was this close to indicting Trump for all we know.
I guess
Trump shut it down.
One thing that's worth noting as well, though, is that the real damning stuff, like the birthday card and all of this kind of thing, that's not come from the Epstein files, right? That's come from the House committee, subpoenaing the estate, right? So in that sense, I suppose even if the Epstein files prove to be this corrupt nothing burger or whatever, there still is the possibility that interesting stuff could come out from the House investigatory committee.
Enigmas never age.
Well,
weird.
Let's wrap things up. JJ, it was so nice having you on. Nice to meet you. Where can people find you? Shout out your channel.
We like to shout out smaller channels on Live and Learn.
Oh, that's so gracious of you guys. Yeah, I mean, if people want to see me, they can just look me up on YouTube. My name is JJ McCullough, but McCullough is hard to spell. So if you just type in JJ Canada, I pop up. So
yeah, and we'll actually have you back on when something crazy happens, like when we invade Canada and we need the frontline reporter. So
sounds good. That's what I'm here for.
Thanks so much for coming on, man.
It was a lot of fun.
What do you have going on this week?
Regular streams, 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. East Coast time.
And I have to say, your thumbnail guy, whoever that is or girl, doing great because I keep clicking on them when I'm in the morning and I'm like, what am I going to watch today? And I'm like, oh, that's a good one. Hutch is yelling at someone.
It's the same as Pisco's.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well,
He's whenever we fight on
subscribe on my other channel, then.
I hope you don't feel weird about that, JJ. It's like now a kind of common routine that Hutch and I will do a little performative.
No, you and I were going at it more this
That's
time.
true. Yeah.
I needed to. Normally, I have you and Hutch across. I need to do that.
There we go. Did you ask me a question? Sorry.
Yeah,
you were
what
doing
you
the
got going
closeouts,
on,
right?
Pisco?
So it's actually funny we have JJ on for this. One of my common people that I try to talk to is another Canadian conservative by the name of Viva Frey. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Yeah, me and him go way back. Actually,
yeah, he's Canadian. Yeah, he's Canadian. Although I
God.
think he might have a house or live in Florida sometimes.
I was talking about
and
it last time I heard. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He also, by the way, he hates. Well, I don't know if you gave your opinion on Pierre Poilievre, other than when you think that he'll second on leadership, but he does not like Pierre Poilievre because he thinks Pierre Poilievre blew it by not going in as many like Trump podcasts during the crazy election for Carney or whatever.
Viva Frey ran for like this fringe far right party in one of the previous Canadian elections. Like the there's a small like dissident party that gets like 1% of the vote. That's like for people that are too right wing for the Conservative Party, and he ran as a parliamentary candidate for that. So yeah, he's been a critic of the Tories from the right. Yeah,
I'll have to ask him about that. But anyway, we're trying to set up a conversation between me and him, an update as to our previous conversation where he was like defending the Qatar airplane and all the corruption from Trump. Yeah. We're going to try to get a little update conversation, see how he feels about Epstein. That'll probably happen the week after Thanksgiving, which is this current week. So keep an eye out for that.
All right. Guy, what's going on with you this week?
Well, I just want to say quickly, JJ, thanks for coming on. I think one of the silver linings of the Trump administration is it's brought us closer to our Canadian neighbors, at least the left. And so I have more of an appreciation for our Canadian friends. So appreciate you being in the fight. I'm just doing my regular streams this week. If you guys want to come see MAGA, try to defend all of this crazy stuff, including supposedly Trump's plan to extend the ACA subsidies after they swore he wouldn't do it. Come hang out on TikTok. Monday through Friday in the morning, I'm debating all these fools. It's hilarious.
Nice. And yeah, on my end, I'm doing a TikTok debate regularly Wednesday at 8 for the Unfuck America, trying to raise money for the trips so we can go debate TPUSA. Charlie Kirk is a coward. He won't show up to any of our events anymore.
Oh my goodness.
But
disavow.
Disavow.
Yeah, you guys are talking about Nick Fuentes capitalizing off it, and I'm just like, nervously eyeing my most recent video. Like, who would capitalize off of that? Yeah, that's what's going on. I might do some news on Thanksgiving just to, keep all the people who don't want to talk to their family entertained. But otherwise, yeah, live and learn next Monday. Well, I think we're having a Straighterate on Pisco. We're bringing on.
That'll be
fun.
On
a progressive. So yeah, we like to shift it around.
Not progressive, communist.
Communist, but not a Marxist-Leninist.
Do they not like being labeled that? I don't know
there was this whole issue. Never mind, don't worry about it. But Marxist-Leninism, as I understand it, is not inclusive of all communists, and so she does not profess to be a Marxist-Leninist.
Okay. Well, anyway, if you guys want to see that, I'm sure that'll be spicy and fun. So thanks again, JJ. Hey, if you want to stick around and chat, I'm gonna end the stream, but you can stay in the room. Oh
shit! Me and the Carter peanut, yeah, for sure.
Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Check out all these guys out. JJ's links in the description, and all the other guys have